Welcome to GLHF. Today, we're going over 10 games that have been forgotten. Before we begin, make sure to give the video a quick thumbs up and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss any of our future videos. Let's start this list with number 10, Drift City. Drift City is a free-to-play arcade-style racing game that was big in the mid to late 2000s. While it wasn't perfect, Drift City was one of the best free-to-play multiplayer games back in the day. It offered a lot of customization. It had its own unique style when it came to graphics, and compared to the other online racing games, it felt more like a racing MMO than just a multiplayer racing game. If you want to play this game today, you can only do it on PC. There was a mobile version a couple of years ago that is no longer available on the Play Store. As for the PC version, they call it a remaster, but it looks pretty much the same as the old version of the game. It lacks a lot of the most common features and optimization we expect from a game today. The main reasons this game has been forgotten is the years of inactivity, repetitive single-player quests, and the same gameplay feel that needs an update. The fact that the remastered version is still not up there definitely hinders the game. The registration process that requires a Discord authorization also doesn't help. It's a damn shame that the game is not in a good state right now because racing MMOs have fallen from the face of the earth and we could really use one right now, especially for free. Number 9, Operation 7. Operation 7 was truly a hidden gem back in the late 2000s. The voice acting was bad, the lore and factions were extremely lacking, but the amount of features and customization the game had offered was more than enough to cover for it. In a sea filled with free-to-play FPS games, Operation 7 shined through with a weapon customization system that you can only see today in games like Escape from Tarkov. Instead of having a base weapon where you add attachments to it, you have to pick each and every part of your weapon, with each variant giving you different stats that would affect your gunplay in the game. On top of being able to choose each part individually, you could pick and individually camo each part. The stat changes based on the parts you picked for your weapon were felt in-game, and while 4 of your friends might have an M4, each performed differently based on how you modified it. From the looks of it, the game is still running with a very low player base. The only version of the official site for the game is in Spanish, so good luck with it if you wish to play it. Number 8, Need for Speed World. Need for Speed World was a free-to-play racing MMO game using the engine and maps from Need for Speed, Most Wanted, and Carbon. The game added a few unique game modes to multiplayer like Team Escape, where you need to successfully escape the police chasing you and your friends. You also had unique time-based events like any MMO game and a treasure hunt mode where you need to collect 15 hidden gems around the map. Sadly, the game is officially down with a huge emphasis on the officially part because the game is actually playable unofficially thanks to the modding community, Soapbox Race World. All you have to do is download a launcher that will give you access to a few private servers with their own economies and unique features. Unlike Drift City, registering for the game is quite easy. The 3 most popular servers always have between 50 to 300 players online at all times. For you to get a race going, you need 8 racers at most. The only downside to the game is the lack of new blood constantly flowing into it, which makes finding low-level races for new players really hard. Most of the players on each server are maxed out, so fair matchmaking is not something you can rely on in this game. We actually highly recommend checking it out right now since the gameplay is pretty good and the graphics do stand the test of time. Number 7, Puzzle Pirates. Puzzle Pirates is a classic MMORPG from the early 2000s. The game is quite unique with its approach. You can engage in any activity you would expect a pirate to. That activity is simulated through a puzzle minigame. Sailing, gunning, navigating, bilging, sword, and every other activity is done through a minigame. Some are single-player, and others are PvE or PvP. The game has tried a soft relaunch on Steam under the title of Puzzle Pirates Dark Seas, which seems to be an expansion, but judging by the stats on Steam, it's not being played. The original Puzzle Pirate, however, is still being played and boasts around 50 to 100 players every day, which is more than enough in the endgame PvE content. The PvP, however, is non-existent in the game, and it's a shame. The premise of the game is great, and we would love to see it revitalized or used somewhere else in a similar environment. Number 6, Jazz Jackrabbit 2. Unlike most on the list, this game is not a free multiplayer title, but rather an old and classic platformer. This 1998 title is probably the most underrated platformer, and it rarely received any attention compared to the more popular platformers out there. Jazz Jackrabbit 2 is a well-designed platformer with sadly too few levels that you can play on your own or with another friend in co-op mode. If you're not in the mood for cooperation, you can play several split-screen modes against your friend locally, or you can do so online with public servers that are still running to this day, and we're surprised, just like you, that a 23-year-old game still has an active multiplayer community. The game can be easily downloaded on several sites for old games if you want to see why this is one of the best old-school platformers that sadly never got to see its third installment officially released. Number 5. Combat Arms. Combat Arms was one of the most popular free-to-play shooters in the previous decade. It had no barrier of entry since it was free-to-play, and it would easily run on a calculator, considering how weak the graphics are. Apparently, there are 2 versions of the game out there right now, Reloaded and the Classic. Classic is the 2015 version of the game, and Reloaded is a slightly better-looking version of the game. The community for the game is decent-sized, and it won't be hard for you to find games in most of the available game modes. It's very easy to see how this game has been forgotten considering how heavily pay-to-win it is. I don't think anyone today wants to be enslaved to a game where you have to grind out daily if you want to have access to a decent weapon that you have to rent if you didn't pay money to buy it permanently. There's way more viable free-to-play FPS games out there with better gameplay and way less pay-to-win elements, and that's why this game is slowly dying. Number 4. Habbo Hotel. Habbo Hotel was a free-to-play, point-and-click social space. It was nothing unique back then in terms of gameplay or features. It had many similar competitors that would actually let you acquire things in-game without paying any real-life money. The game dates back to 2006, where internet culture was running wild, but was completely misunderstood by the mainstream media. The game has spawned many memes, such as "the pool's closed," where players would simply block the entrance to one of the public pools in-game with their dark-skinned avatar. That meme spiraled out of control with endless amounts of prank calls and a sign in real life that made it to the news. When players weren't blocking parts of the room in-game, they would create a certain symbol from Buddhism that was appropriated during the Second World War, and that's only scratching the surface when it comes to the Habbo Hotel controversies. The game is actually still up and has a decent-sized community if you wish to check it out. Number 3. MU Online. MU Online was a point-and-click MMORPG from the very early 2000s. The game being able to run on most PCs even back then without a lot of competitors in the genre, and being a lot like a free-to-play Diablo game was a huge part of its success. The game was very popular even outside of the main server, with many private servers that spawned with their own unique take on the game. The game is still available for any of you that wish to check it out. It's changed a lot from the time it was launched 20 years ago. Number 2. Guns the Duel. Judging by the name and the gameplay, you would easily call Guns a third-person shooter. But, despite its name, there's an equal amount of melee weapons usage in the game. Guns was a very successful, high-skill ceiling shooter in the early and late 2000s, with its high mobility and unique in-game mechanics. Most of the mechanics in the game were the result of bugs and lackluster game design that were taken advantage of by the top players in the game. The reason the game has been forgotten is the lack of support and competent updates from the team to address all the cheating and hacking in the game. The fact that the game was not noob-friendly at all meant that there were a lot of veteran players leaving the game with no injection of fresh blood. There was an attempt to revive Guns with Guns 2 on Steam that failed miserably. Taking all the glitches that created the high-skill maneuvers and making them easier to perform had made the hardcore following of the game abandon the new version for making it too easy. The game being more noob-friendly didn't help it gain traction at all with new players, and the game was pretty much dead on arrival. Going to the classic version of the game to record some gameplay, it's still very hard to get into a game considering the fact that you're starting at level 1 with terrible gear against maxed out players with the strongest weapons. Getting one kill was challenge enough, and even if you were a skilled player, do you really want to struggle for many more levels until you can actually put up a fight? It's a shame they couldn't make a more noob-friendly, updated version for the game that kept true to the game's core audience. Number 1. Club Penguin. Club Penguin was a wholesome PG social space game from the mid-2000s, and it was very popular. The game had a lot of activities and mini-games that you can earn money or unique items. It had weekly content updates with new cosmetics for your character and occasionally some new content or location on the map. The only bad thing about the game was the fact you couldn't use most of your money to buy all the pets, clothes, furniture, and igloos, since you had to be a paying member to have that privilege. What killed Club Penguin was Disney acquiring the game in 2007 and shutting it down 10 years later in March 2017, despite the game still being profitable. They closed the game to create a 3D mobile successor that was later available on PC, but it failed to capture the game's core audience and was later shut down as well. The original Club Penguin has private servers ran by the community even before it was shut down, and they're now the only way you can play the game. There was a lot of controversy and drama surrounding those private servers, which resulted in some DMCA claims by Disney, who had to finally address the private servers because of the negative attention that had reached mainstream media. If you want to play the game today, you can do so on Club Penguin Rewritten at your own risk. Not all of the features and the minigames are there, but you can still play most of the game and actually buy all the items in-game without purchasing a membership. So there is that. What is your favorite game that has been forgotten? Make sure to leave it in the comments below the video, and on your way down there, drop a like on the video. A lot of you guys watching our videos are not subscribed yet, so make sure to do so and turn on the notification bell so you won't miss any of our future videos. Thank you guys for watching, good luck, and have fun.